Hello everyone and welcome back to droidcon Berlin 2025. I'm here with Maia, so I'll let her introduce herself.
Okay, hi, I'm Maia Grotepass. I'm a long-time Android engineer, and at the moment I'm working at Qonto. And lately I've been really interested in how AI is changing our jobs.
Like you mentioned, you've been working in Android for a very, very long time. So you've seen a lot of hot new tech come and go and lots of different things happen. What do you think makes AI maybe different from the past?
Well, the interesting thing about AI is it has read everything that the humans have produced in code and learnt their habits. So when you interact with an AI, it feels a little bit like looking in a mirror, and it feels like the AI is doing all of those little things that we don't want humans to do, like delete the tests. And so
Yep.
at the same time, it means we're reflecting on our values and our processes and what we want from tech and what we want from development and what we want from products.
And in your day job, you are part of a 60 plus Android team, which
That's
I dare
right,
say
yeah.
is quite a large Android team.
Yeah.
What was the kind of deciding factor that made your team start to seriously consider AI and how it can be used?
At my company, experimentation is very important, and we're always trying to see how we can go faster. We're always reflecting back and looking at what our processes are like and how we're doing things. And AI came up, and we had to just give it a try to see if it'll work for us. And so it started off as experimentation, and then slowly but surely, as we saw where it could help us, we started integrating it into our process.
I think, particularly with AI, but with introducing anything new in general, there's always the worry that it's going to slow things down and it's going to make the processes more convoluted and more difficult. What approaches or kind of things did you do to make sure that didn't happen?
The thing is that with anything new, you have to go through a phase where you're learning. And when you're learning, it does go slower. The times that you're actually slowing yourself down is if you don't reflect back on what you're learning. So it's okay to go slower while you're busy learning, as long as you're paying attention and applying the things. So I can't say that it didn't make us go slower at times, and I'm pretty sure it did. But it's part of the process at Qonto to do experiments and then find quick solutions and find quick ways to work around it. So I'd say it's part of the DNA of the company to deal with that kind of learning.
With any sort of learning, you have to be prepared to fail.
Yes.
And I think the phrase is fail and fail quickly, because the quicker you fail and learn from that, the quicker you can move
Indeed.
on to the next thing. So, yeah, having that sort of ethos, I think, is really great.
And also, in a way, I mean, fail, but also decide, okay, we'll start this experiment. Okay, we've decided to stop this experiment. We don't want to spend more time on this. We'll come back when the tech has changed or when something else has changed or when we're in a different situation, to be able to make that call as well and not
Yeah.
to try and pursue something towards the end just because you wanted to,
Yeah, being prepared
to
to
work.
say no, I think, is.
Or stop at any time.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. No, that's very, very important. Talking about AI and the kind of things that you've learned from this process, is there any specific areas for developers that are showing the most promise?
If you can describe the thing that you want the AI to do very clearly, and typically if it's a repetitive thing, I mean, if you can describe it once and you can get the AI to do it once, that's one thing. But if you've got sort of migrations, large code refactorings, and the tasks are relatively simple and relatively boring, and you're able to describe exactly what it is you want the AI to do, those kinds of tasks are extremely suitable for AI. The other thing which is really suitable for AI is if you have a code base and you want to understand how the code base is working. So for instance, I've only been at Qonto for a relatively short time,
Yep.
but we have a huge code base, and there's no way that I can get up to speed quickly.
Yep.
And their AI is invaluable, not necessarily to change the code base, but for me to get an idea of what's happening in the code, or for me to ask at the Git history and trying to get an idea of how things grew to be the way they are. So
Yeah.
as an exploratory tool and as an onboarding tool, it's been invaluable.
Yeah, I can definitely look back to my early career where I joined a company that had a sprawling Java code base, and having something like that would have been invaluable. I think it took, I dare say it took 6 months before I was fully comfortable with the code base.
Yes, and the other thing is at that point, usually if you don't have that kind of assistance, you need to find the expert and then interrupt them and ask them. So
Yep.
in a way, you're taking time away from someone that's in focus mode just because you want to ask them, why does this API have this variable, right?
Yeah.
This parameter.
And then you can get stuck in that loop of, do I spend hours trying to figure it out myself?
Yes.
Do I interrupt someone? Yeah. So I can see, a really impactful way to use AI
Yeah.
in a code base. When we talk about developers, I think one thing maybe that's a stereotype is that developers can be quite resistant to change and not wanting to use another tool or another thing
Okay.
in their workflow. How do you kind of try to mitigate that and encourage the use of these AI tools?
Okay, so that's quite interesting. I think different people have different approaches. Some people want to experiment, and some people, they don't have the time to experiment. They just want me to tell them what tools they should be using. So you need to have, there's always still a human in the loop,
Yeah.
and people are different. So I think the approach that we've had multiple different ways of doing this. We have champions that will, if you have a problem, step in, pair program, and work with you and try and figure out a solution, and in that way show how the tool could work. We have opinionated guides for people who don't want to explore and experiment. We'll say, these are the tools that you can play with if you want to, and then you don't need to do all of the tools. We have existing patterns that we know are working. So, for instance, I'll give you a good example. We had a large migration of some files. We got an AI expert person to build the prompts right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then because we were using Claude Code, we could make those commands such that they're available. And then the next people that come on the team, part of the job is for that project to learn how to use that AI tool. So they don't have to develop the prompt themselves.
Yeah.
Someone else built the prompt, but we can repeat that kind of workflow, and then people are experiencing it in a different way. But I think the crux of it is not to expect everybody to absorb and use the tools in the same way,
Yeah.
because people use tools differently anyway.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing that's interesting, what we did is we're scanning and we're looking at who's spending time on the AI and who's spending a lot of time on the AI.
Mhm.
And then we might have our champion joining someone who's maybe, I don't know, looking like they're spending a bunch of tokens. And it's either because they're thrashing and they're struggling, or it's because they're really super efficient and they're doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Either way, we want to learn what they're doing,
Yep.
and then trying to get that learning back into how the team is working.
Yeah.
So it's like a continuous process of tweaking and adjusting. Yeah.
Yeah. When you introduce any new process, any new tool, one thing that you've got to consider is how you measure the success of that tool.
Yes.
How you measure if something is doing well. What kind of approaches did you take in that regard?
Okay, I can tell you about our big failure here, right?
That's good.
So I think if you really want to know what's happening, you probably need to set it up a bit more scientifically and have an A/B style test and say, okay, these teams won't use AI, we'll measure. These teams will use AI and we'll measure. But we didn't do that. We basically said, hey, we want everybody to use AI. And so that actually, in a way, made the measurement more difficult. On the flip side of it, I think it's super important to know if you're introducing problems into your process anyway. So we look at PR sizes, we release every single day, we look at how many incidents we have, we look at we have a thing called red bins, which are like issues on the development path. So
Yep.
we have multiple places where we were measuring anyway, and those measurements are already there. So
Sure.
we're tracking those measurements anyway in different levels of the organization. We can tag these things now as AI potential things. So from that perspective, it's the same measurements we were doing before.
Yep.
And now with AI, I think the important thing is to make the window just a little bit longer, not just watching the trends now, but watching over the... Well, we started with AI in 2023, so it needs to have a slightly longer window to be able to see if there's been any impact
Yep.
in that sense. The thing, though, is there's so many parameters that are changing. We've got different teams. We've got people with different skill sets. So was it AI or was it the new amazing engineer that came on the team, or the
Yep.
fantastic manager, or whatever it is? So that's quite difficult to track. There's another facet that's super important that we also track, and that's developer sentiment, if you like. So it's no use me introducing these tools and it makes everybody mad and hate their job.
Yeah.
So we've got, on the Android team, we have a 6-monthly survey with some broad topics which we track. But we also have a way where people can report good experiences and bad experiences. Not so much because we want to say, oh, I saved 3 days or 5 days, but more because we want to see what is the developer sentiment around the tools so that we can adjust. Because if everybody hates it, we need to figure out either how we're going to change it or stop using it.
It is always a hard thing to track and track efficiently,
Yeah.
but equally very important. So it's good. And
So
yeah,
my tip there would be, if you're not tracking things like how quickly you're releasing, how many incidents or how many problems you're having, then best start tracking that whether you're using AI or not,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think you need that data.
Yes.
As soon as you're more than one person, you need
Yes,
that
yeah.
all that data, definitely, without a doubt. So we've talked about maybe some of the successes, maybe some of the things that are going well with AI. What are the kind of some of the failures that you've had in terms of maybe experiments that didn't work with AI?
The one big failure that we had, my colleague had a talk and he mentioned that as well, is we tried quite early on to do a Figma MCP design system
Okay.
mashup thing where we were trying to see if we can go directly from the screens that are designed by our designers into compose code.
Yep.
I think it was to do with the timing, but also we have quite a large library of design components for our design system in our app, and it was just like blowing out the context, and we could demo simple things like that, but we couldn't really get that to work properly.
Sure.
So I think it's just picking the right feature that you want to use the AI for, and so in that case we didn't finish. We were using Cursor as well, so that didn't work. The other thing I'd say is that I've had mixed results with finding the right person to do the initial prompt engineering while
Sure.
we're all still learning how the prompts work. So I would have someone try and figure out what the prompt would be for this migration, and one migration would work well, but another migration would be a bit more tricky. Or as the person got up to speed and learning how to deal with Claude or whatever tool it was, you'd have some failure in the beginning.
Sure.
But again, is that really failure, or is that us upskilling?
Yeah, it's just a learning exercise more
Yeah.
than anything else. Definitely. Yeah, I think one of the things definitely when it comes to AI is being conscious of that context window and trying to keep it as tight as possible.
Yes.
Because things hallucinate.
So the thing is, it's interesting, those kind of principles, running a project or figuring out what it is you've got to do in a project, those skills are the same. Before AI, I also had to think about how do I want to implement this, what is the pattern I want to do here, what are the tasks that I want to do, or if I'm working in a team, especially so,
Yeah.
trying to say, okay, I'm going to do this piece, you're going to do that piece. Oh, what do you want me to do? And being very clear about that. So those skills, I just need to sharpen them
Yep.
even more so when I'm working with AI.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
it's
the thing.
not, those skills aren't new.
No.
And then the other thing that's interesting about AI processes is at the moment it's making me think really carefully about where do I want human thinking and where do I want just doing the thing.
Yeah.
At what point do we want to have humans actively using their brains? And how do we know that that part has happened? So I'll give you an example. If you're at the beginning of a feature and you want someone to design something into the system, at that point, I do want someone to think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And before we used to use some documentation on that people would write down how they thought, but now those documents can be so readily generated by AI. And if they're generated by AI, how do I know the person really thought about the thing?
Yep.
And so it's those kind of cutoff points that become more interesting. And the interesting thing for me about this is that since we can't use those artifacts anymore to figure out if people are thinking, it takes us back to having a conversation with a person, and it takes us back to having human interaction and figuring out how the humans are working with it to know at those points where I wanted people to think whether that actually happened or not.
Yeah. I think that's the attractive danger of AI is completely removing the human thinking component, and people maybe saying, "Oh, I'll just use AI to do this."
Okay, but there's a meta level of thinking you need to do there. Is to
Yeah.
decide, is this an important thing to think about, right?
Yeah.
Like, or is it, for instance, let me think of something. If I know how to do the refactoring, do I want the person to think about how to do the refactoring again,
Yeah.
since it's already sorted out? So it's making me think about where I want to spend the human thought energy
Yeah.
during a process.
No, which
We're
is
getting really meta here.
yeah, definitely. No, but true. It is exactly what you need to do to kind of be efficient and
Yeah.
really use AI to its full advantage. So, kind of trying to maybe get the crystal ball out a bit and look towards the future. What do you think kind of AI's role is going to be for engineers, say, 2 years from now? How much of an impact is that going to have compared to today?
I think it might not look the way it looks right now,
Mhm.
because at the moment we're all still struggling to figure out how to make things work consistently. I think we'll find niches where it works really well, and then it'll just disappear. You wouldn't even imagine. Like, I can't imagine how to find something on the internet without using a search engine.
Yeah.
And I think that there's certain of our tasks that we will not do anymore at all, and we wouldn't even imagine how to do. We wouldn't even be able to know how to do them anymore, because there will be AI tools that are just doing those things automatically. For instance, like the way we have a wizard in the beginning of a project, where you just run a wizard in your IDE to just set things up for you. You might have different levels of things, custom built pieces for what you
Yeah.
want in the beginning. So
Yeah, I think with all the kind of hype around AI, people kind of worry that, there's the idea that AI is going to replace everyone's job, it's going to do everything. But realistically, it's just another tool.
that's true, but our jobs have been changing forever.
Yeah, exactly.
If I just think about my whole career, my job, I'm not doing anything that I studied. I'm hardly doing anything that I did in my first professional job. And the only way through is to keep learning about new things. And even if you look at the history of mankind, our jobs keep changing.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's some things that we keep doing and some things that we stop doing. And you have to be adaptable and change. So it's not like AI is going to take my job. AI is going to take my current job,
yeah.
but I have to adapt and find a new way through and find another
Yeah.
thing that's exciting to do.
I think realistically, that's the only way anyone can be successful as a developer is to continuously learn and continuously evolve.
As a human, right?
As a human, yeah. Well, yeah. Even more widely, that is very true. And I think, like you mentioned, like we wouldn't even imagine trying to find web pages without just using a search engine. Who goes on a message board or even like Reddit, really? Like it just
But
doesn't.
it might be that it changes again, that if we're at a point where we don't trust the search engine, but we
Yeah.
want a human recommendation, maybe we do go back on a board again.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it might change
Well,
completely.
definitely, and with the evolution of like social media as well, we're definitely seeing people moving back to more traditional blog formats and kind of
Yes.
decentralized stuff. So
Or looking for that human connection.
Yeah.
I know AI has really changed the way I blog. I don't write blog posts in the same format I used to anymore. I'm trying to do all sorts of interesting, quirky things just because it becomes a signature of humanness and not of being reproduced by
Yeah.
an AI.
definitely. So one final question: you've obviously been very involved in the community, come to lots of droidcons, giving lots of talks. What kind of motivates you to share your experiences with AI in such an open format? Whether it's giving a talk or this interview now, what motivates you to do that?
I find I learn the most when I'm sharing something with someone. So initially, when I started doing talks, I would pick a topic that I know nothing about, start doing a talk, and because of that, I needed to do really thorough research. And so it's always when I'm having a conversation with someone where there's like a facet of what I'm busy learning that I didn't think about in that way, that becomes highlighted by the interaction with other people.
Yeah.
So it makes me explore topics better, and it makes me learn new things. And it's fun, right?
I mean, I completely agree. I'm exactly the same. I've given lots of talks where I submitted the talk and knew nothing about the
Yes.
topic at that time. But it's an exciting way to learn.
And the best thing is if someone in the audience then asks me a question that I don't know the answer of, then I need to know, oh, there's a gap in the way. Either I explained it or there's a gap in my research. I need to go and find
Yeah.
that small little angle or small little nugget of
Definitely.
interesting things, yeah.
Without
Cool.
a doubt. Well, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I'm glad. Yeah, it's been really good. So thank you,
Thank
and I
you.
hope you have a good conference.
Thank
and
you, thank
I'm
you.
sure I'll see you again very soon.
Okay,
Thank you.
cheers.